Welcome to PM in the PM. This is my regular podcast where I take a recent event and look at how it links to the ACCA Performance Management syllabus area. The benefit of listening is we explore real-world application of what you're learning as you study the PM syllabus. It means you're more likely to remember, you can give better answers to application questions. And in today's episode, we delve into the recent developments at Vauxhall and we examine the factors which led to the closure of its historic Luton plant. We look at the implications of innovation challenges and how these events relate to the ACCA Performance Management syllabus, in particular the Balanced Scorecard, which is found in syllabus area E, Performance Measurement and Control. Now, Vauxhall's Luton factory has been a cornerstone of the UK's automotive industry for over 120 years, and it was recently announced that it's going to close, and that puts about 1,100 jobs at risk. Now, there are several critical factors which have contributed to this outcome. One of those is a transition to electric vehicles, to EVs. The UK's got quite strict zero-emission expectations that manufacturers will need to meet, and Vauxhall's parent company Stellantis, they cited these regulations as a significant factor which affected the viability of this Luton plant. It's also been cited that cost pressures following Brexit have had an impact. There's increased costs, increased complexities, and this has impacted their operational sustainability. And in addition, there's been a perceived lag in innovation and adaptation to emerging market trends, particularly in the EV sector, and that may have affected their competitiveness. Innovation is known to be the lifeblood of any successful enterprise because it drives growth, it fosters competitiveness, and it ensures they remain relevant in an ever-changing landscape. And any inability to adapt to new technologies, to adapt to consumer demands, will leave that company trailing behind its more agile competitors. So what's the Balanced Scorecard? The Balanced Scorecard, it's a performance measurement tool which is used for service and non-service organisations. It uses financial measures, but it also uses non-financial measures, and it focuses on 4 different aspects and aims to establish goals for each of those and measures which can be used to evaluate whether the goals have been achieved. Now, there is some confusion over the difference between a goal and a measure, and the examining team have in the past commented on this. A goal is what you would like to achieve. So, for example, to grow the market share by 5 percentage points in the course of the next year. And the measure is how you would determine whether or not this has been met. And so using that same example, you could use a comparison of sales to the market. For example, if sales are currently 10% of market now, they would need to be 15% in a year. Another comment that the examining team have made is if they ask for one goal and one measure, don't waste time giving 2. There'll be no extra marks for giving a second goal and a second measure if you've only been asked for 1. Likewise, if they ask for 2, make sure you give 2. One of the concerns about traditional measures is they're mainly inward looking, they're generally narrow in focus, and they overemphasize financial measures and short-term goals. And most traditional financial measures are backwards looking as well. They tell us how the company has done and don't really lead to an improvement over time. And what the Balanced Scorecard attempts to do is look at both those internal and external factors and links that performance to the company strategy. And the reason it's called balanced is it tries to prevent an improvement on one aspect at the expense of another. And also critically, it helps to identify needs and concerns of customers. In the PM syllabus, the Balanced Scorecard is split into 4 perspectives. In reality, it's not prescriptive like this. It can be adapted to company or industry specific requirements, but generally in the syllabus, it uses these 4 perspectives. There's a financial perspective, which encompasses those traditional financial metrics such as profitability. There's a customer perspective, and that incorporates measures related to customer satisfaction, related to market share. There's the internal process perspective, and that looks at the efficiency of the organisation and the quality of those internal processes. And then finally, it has this learning and growth perspective that looks at employee development, looks at innovation, and looks at organisational improvement. So how can we analyse the challenges that Vauxhall seems to have gone through this lens of the Balanced Scorecard? I don't know if they used a Balanced Scorecard, and I'm not saying things would have been different if they had, but I think it's really nice to find real-world examples that are linked to parts of the syllabus just to make it more memorable, make it more tangible, make it more real. So let's look at the financial perspective. The fact that they are having to close this Luton plant, that indicates there's a significant financial pressure, possibly due to declining sales, possibly increased operational costs. When we look at the customer perspective, it's crucial that any organisation understands and meets customers' expectations. And there's been a shift in consumer preferences towards electric vehicles, and that may have outpaced the offering that Vauxhall has. And if that has led to a loss in market share, that clearly has a negative impact. Personally, I've just taken the step myself into the EV market. I haven't bought a Vauxhall, it's a different brand. We're seeing more and more electric vehicles on the road, and companies must deliver in a way that resonates with consumers. That's the only way they're going to enhance customer satisfaction and enhance loyalty. And then looking at the third perspective, the internal process perspective, because they're having to relocate production, maybe that's because there are inefficiencies or challenges within their existing processes at this Luton plant. So once again, any organisation, they need to be continually streamlining operations, improving efficiency, reducing overheads, increasing productivity. If they're not doing these things on a regular basis, they're going to be left behind. Often that means adopting new technologies and using those technologies to optimise manufacturing, but also administrative processes. And then finally, learning and growth perspective. This transition from combustion engine vehicles to electric vehicle production, perhaps it's highlighted potential gaps in employee skill development. It's really important that organisations invest in their employees so they can foster that culture of continuous improvement, crucial for long-term sustainability. Innovation is another aspect of the learning and growth perspective. Companies must cultivate an environment that encourages creativity, encourages innovation. That's how you find new and better ways to do things, new and better products that customers want. So this story around Vauxhall is really sad. It's really sad for employees who may lose their job and obviously their families. And in the UK, when a factory that's been around for 120 years has been part of the landscape for generations is faced with closure, it tends to be quite an emotive subject, quite an emotive topic. Could Vauxhall prevent this had things been different? Possibly, we don't know. But hopefully this look at what's happened through the lens of the Balanced Scorecard will give you a way to remember things around the Balanced Scorecard when you're in the exam trying to answer questions. So thanks very much for tuning in to PM in the PM. I hope you found this episode informative. As always, leave feedback in the comments. Any future topics you're interested in me covering, just put a note in the comments and I'll look to see if I can find any real world application of that area of the syllabus that you're struggling with. Until next time, this is Richard Guyver signing off.